Hey everyone, this is another one of my Arduino videos. This one's going to be a little different because, first of all, I'm speaking in it, and secondly, I'm going to walk you through the project that I did, how I put it together, what problems I faced while doing it, and then how I solved those problems. So this setup is going to follow the keyboard instrument tutorial in the Arduino project book. I followed it pretty closely to the instructions with one minor modification that I'll go into, but most of all, I was just trying to do a more complicated project than I had previously tackled. So as far as the physical setup of the board goes, we have the piezo here, which you saw in the light theremin video, and that creates sound. And it is connected to power, and then to pin 8 here on the board. We also have these 4 switches here, which do something when you press on them. The first one is connected to power here. And then each of these are connected to power here using these resistors. And then they're all junctioned together using these yellow cables. The junction is grounded with this resistor here, and then connected to analog 0 here on the board. And what the project does is each button will create a different tone, almost like a piano. And you can see that when I press the buttons, it makes different sounds. You'll notice that I didn't really press that first one, and when I did, it didn't really make sound. That's because it's a problem that I encountered doing this project, and I'll go into how I solved it. So when I do press that first button, it kind of stutters. Not ideal, not the way that we want it to be. And so, as I said, this was following the tutorial in the project book to a T. And to solve this problem, I made a little bit of modification to the code, and I'll show you that. Okay, so here is the code that I used. Like I said, it's pretty much copied out of the Arduino manual. But the problem is with this first button here. It's saying if it measures 1023, it's going to play this. And it was giving that kind of crunchy sound. And over here, I've got the serial monitor open, which you can do by pressing this button. So if I press that first button, you can see that it's mostly reading 1023, but there are some little fluctuations in it. And so the way that I changed that was I modified that line of code to instead use a range like these ones do. So now with the change that I made, it's saying if the value is greater than or equal to 1020, but less than or equal to 1023, then play the sound. And so I'm going to go ahead and upload that. So now with the updated code on the board, you can see that these buttons still work just fine. And this first button works better now. So another thing that was really challenging for me with this project is that it depends a lot on the resistors that you use. The Arduino reads the amount of resistance to identify the button and then decides what tone to make. So you have to use the correct resistor for the value that you coded in order to get the right sound. I have trouble identifying the resistors. The color coding doesn't really make sense to me. Obviously, I can identify the colors, but then when it gets to adding them and multiplying them, it's too many numbers for me. So what I did is I pulled out my multimeter. These are really cheap. You can get them online or in like a tech hobbyist store. I have one because my stepdad was cleaning out his garage and didn't need it anymore. So you can see that I have this set to ohms, and right now it's on the 20K setting. You can change that based on the resistor that you're measuring, but for this example, 20K will work just fine. But for example, I'm pressing the pins to either end of the resistor, and you get a readout of how much resistance it's measuring. And you can see that mine stabilized at 0.22, which is 220 ohms, which is one of the resistances that the project calls for. I went through and I did this with all the resistors that I received with my Arduino kit and that I used in this project so that I was sure that I was using the correct one for each button.